everybody. We are live here with Maple Syrup Show, and it's me and George, and Kat is probably asleep in where is she now?
Prague.
George?
In
Prague.
Prague.
In Prague. And we're here today with very special guest, Luke Parnell. Luke is always on the stream. He's always in the comments, asking questions, talking about his games, and generally being a wonderful participant. So we thought, hey, Luke has a lot to say. Why don't we talk to Luke about, life, the universe, and everything? So welcome to the show, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. So today we were going to talk to you about art, culture, and your process in game design and how you integrate all of that together. Before we start that, let's just get our titles up and say howdy to Luke. And then, Luke, I'd like to know your origin story. So tell George and I a little bit about how you got into game design. You mentioned before when we were off camera that you kind of have this quality about you that you get really into things. What got you into gaming in the first place?
Well, the pandemic was the main factor, but I used to play this game called, or I still play it sometimes, called French Tarot, and I played it with a group of friends in Toronto, and it's a really amazing game. And I'd never heard of it before I started playing with them. Two of my friends are from France, and I was talking with my friends like, "This is such a great game. Like, how come people don't play this?" And my friends were like, "Oh, people are too stupid. That's why." And I'm like, "No, they're not. Like it's a complicated." And I didn't know anything about the hobby board game world. Like I knew nothing, and so I was like, I want to, we just got to be a way to make this game more accessible. And so I sort of started playing around with this idea of like streamlining that game, and then through that I sort of got into the started discovering the hobby board gaming world. And then the pandemic happened, and I was basically alone for 2 years. And so I sort of really like did a deep dive and got really into it and started redesigning the game. But then it was really like what I found was like when you change one thing, then you have to change another thing. I was talking
Right.
about this. I was talking about this with Daniel Winter. He's a board game podcaster in Vancouver, and how it's kind of holistic in the sense that it's all connected. Like everything's connected, and if you change one thing, then it has huge effects other places. And I sort of discovered that by trying to streamline this game, like I had to change other things. And there's things I also wanted, like I wanted to simplify the scoring system, which was crazy ridiculous. Like we played hundreds of games, and only two of us know how to keep score. So
Right.
one of those two people weren't there. I don't know who won.
Right. It's sort of like mahjong in that way. A lot of people know how to play mahjong, but not a lot of people know how to score it. So, and it depends which version you're playing too, of course. So tell us, Luke. Once you kind of got bit by the bug of modifying an existing game, what got you started into trying to design your own things?
It happened right away. As soon as I discovered that like you could just make your own games, then I started ordering things off Amazon, getting them delivered to my place in Toronto. I was living in Toronto at the time. I live in northern BC now, Prince Rupert, BC. And so I had this idea for like this puzzle game, and it was inspired by like this documentary I saw called Sky Ladder. And I had this idea for making a game where you're trying to build this sky ladder, and it's a completely terrible game, like unplayable, really bad. But it didn't matter. Like I didn't even care. Like the ideas were just flowing. And like I talked to you off screen, like I get obsessed. Like I was obsessed with carving for so many years, and then digital drawing, and then board game design, and so on and so forth. So I get obsessed, and I just started designing games, like just everywhere. Like every little thing could be a game, and then I just got better at it. I've gotten better, and I've been able to sort of go back to Three Ravens, and I had different titles called Tsunami for a while. It wasn't a title I really liked, but it was so funny. Like I was on Board Game Design Lab, and I sort of showed some pictures of. That's where I met you, actually.
Yeah.
I showed some pictures, and I got like trolled by this guy. And I'm really bad at picking up on racism, so like I didn't notice at first. He was just like trolling me, but he was talking about how I can't use the name Tsunami because it's Japanese, and I was like, and I didn't change the name for probably a year because of that, even though I didn't like the name. And so I was like, I'm not going to change it because of that guy. And then I was like, what are you
Just 'cause of
talking
that
about?
guy.
Like, change the name. You never liked it anyway. Like, yeah, because I wanted to. It always had love my culture in the game. I really, because if you've never seen a French Tarot deck, it's a really beautiful deck of cards. And I thought, oh, this is such an amazing way to show my art. And plus, I'd become obsessed with digital drawing, so I could do all the drawing digitally.
Right.
So I started making art and started making cards, and I got prototypes made like right away, like way before I should have.
You were
Like
really
literally,
bitten by the bug,
oh
yeah.
man, like literally 2 months after I started designing my first game, I ordered prototypes, and the deck's pretty much the same. I mean, like I said, I changed a couple cards and I changed the put points on the card. I did all kinds of things to make it sort of more user friendly, but it's still a pretty complex game.
So, um, so Tsunami turned into Three Ravens.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, you know what, everybody? Let's take a look at some of Luke's art. I'm going to share the screen and we're going to go over to a couple galleries where Luke's art is featured. So here we go. So I'm going to call this into the stream. Boop, there we are. We're going to make it really big. We're actually going to make it solo. So that's all anybody will be able to see is Luke's art. So as I'm scrolling through this, Luke, I don't know if you can see this, but you are walking along a shore. I don't know where, but you are carrying a carving that is about the size of me on your back, and I weigh about 125 pounds. So that carving is probably like huge and dense wood. Can you tell us a little bit about this piece that we're looking at right now?
Yeah, that's actually it was for a film I made called Remediation, and the film was a reaction to a film made in the '50s called The Timeless Tones of Skangway, and it was Bill Reed's first foray into indigenous art. Bill Reed's a prominent Northwest Coast artist. He passed away quite a few years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
a big hero of mine. And in the film, it was basically like him, and he didn't like he was Haida, but he had grown up in Victoria, so on and so forth, and so he was sort of coming back to the islands. And so that was a project where they went to the Haida Gwaii, they cut down a bunch of old totem poles and cut them into pieces and sent them to different like galleries and private collections. And the film was like really condescending and talking about how the Haidas who carved the totem poles were basically different from the Haidas who live there now, even though it was Haida fishermen who brought them out there to get the poles and the Haida loggers who helped them cut them down. So the idea is they're preserving this culture that didn't exist anymore. And they sort of made a lot of points of like showing that we were different than them. I'm Haida, my father's Haida. I'm also my mother's Nishka. I'm Nishka as well. And so I wanted to do a piece that would react to that film and sort of show that the Haidas who made those carved those totem poles are the same as the Haidas now. Like those are our ancestors. There's no disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made this film called Remediation. This idea, and so in the film, basically, I carved this totem pole in Montreal, and I cut it in half, and I carried the top half back to BC to me, and went out into the forest and um, went out onto the coast, and I burned it. With the idea being that like it's the these are just objects. They're not the culture. They represent the culture, but they're not the culture. Like we're the culture. Like we can create them. Like I can destroy it because I can carve another one, or my nephews or my descendants can carve another one, or because or anybody because it's the culture that keeps the art going. It's not the art that keeps the culture going.
Right, right, right. And it's interesting because I don't know what you think about games, Luke, but do you think games are a part of culture?
Oh, definitely. We have I don't know a lot about the history of gaming in my own culture, but we have a rich history of gaming as well. I think games are definitely a really, really great medium for telling stories.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that drew to me, like this idea of like I think of my own practice of like I do a lot of installation art, that sort of thing. This idea of like ideas and sort of like almost like I'll say in board game terms, the idea of mechanics and art coming together to form something um, beautiful. I guess is the best way of putting it.
Right.
And I sort of think of that idea of like, I'm a contemporary indigenous artist, and I use contemporary tools and stuff. Use these sort of, in art history and so forth. This is a really great piece here. I love this piece.
Yeah,
Anyway, even
it's
though it's
lovely.
mine. Yeah, it's
You
nice when
can
you
say
don't see
that.
your. It's nice when you don't see your work for a long time, and then you see it again, and it's like, wow, who carved that?
Yeah, I think it was you.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I sort of see board games almost like installation pieces, but I'm also aware that they're products. Like I'm always aware that it's also a product. So I think about
Right.
like box size and stuff.
Yeah, and how do you disseminate or not disseminate, but discriminate between the two things, uh, like art versus a product? It's hard for me. It must be maybe I don't know. Is it really hard for you as an artist to change your mindset about that kind of stuff?
No, not in the least. Because I'm an indigenous artist, the only way that we were able to preserve our artistic history was through creating ephemera, like by creating artwork for like in the because our our artwork was banned in Canada for like 83 years, or not artwork, our culture was banned, and so
Right.
they weren't because of the potlatch ban, they weren't allowed to make culturally significant art for like 80 years. So they could make a mask to sell to a gallery, but they couldn't make a mask to use in ceremony. You know, they could sew blankets for to sell to like a rich client, but they couldn't weave, or they could weave them. They could weave blankets for a rich client, but they couldn't weave them to use in ceremony. You know, like they couldn't. You know what I mean? Like saving totem poles, like
Hmm.
they could carve them for a park, but they couldn't carve them for their homes. And so there's this sort of like weird duo art history that we have because people were still doing stuff secretly. Like people were
Of
still doing ceremony
course.
stuff.
Mhm.
it just wasn't really allowed. And so so we actually have this dual history in my culture, and that's why I said I'm sort of able to remember that this is also a product.
Right, and it's why you're
But that
able
does,
to like burn a totem pole
yeah,
because you can make it again, right?
I can
That
make it again, and that's what it was made for. That's what the purpose was. Like it was always the intention of that for that to be that piece's journey.
right. That's fascinating. We're gonna take a look at some other stuff. George, do you have any questions?
I was just thinking about the different sort of work that you've done, and I mean, art is everyone takes away from art whatever they get from it in a sense, but usually when you're creating art, you have something you want to convey to people, whether it's a story or an emotion or something. And I find with games, it's almost more of a tool for people to tell their own stories and have their own emotional experience. And I'm curious how someone who makes I guess classical art moving into games, do you find is that a different do you approach it differently with those two sorts of experiences coming, or is your goal to tell the story with the games that you're creating? I'm saying too much, but I think you get the gist.
I get the gist. It's sort of something. It's not I'm not struggling with it, but it's something I'm thinking about it. Like with Three Ravens, it was just more of like a canvas to show my artwork because it's a trick taking game, and there are really good storytelling trick taking games now. Like I'm thinking of the Lord of the Rings trick taking game,
Right.
which I just ordered. I don't have it yet, so I don't know how that goes. But you know, there is room for that. But with mine, it was more like this is my first game, and I was really trying to make it a great game and sort of use it as a canvas for my art. But as far as storytelling goes, like I have another game called Ulakan City, and Ulakan is a fish that we have up here, and it's the first fish of the season. Um, and it's so like it's the first harvest essentially of the season, so people are really like after a long winter of like eating preserves and stuff, they get this first like fresh fish called Ulukans, and I made this whole like futuristic story around this game, and it started from there. Like it started from my own culture and sort of building this like indigenous futures sort of card game. And so when I was designing the game, I was sort of keeping the idea in mind of the story that I had created. And so I think that it can mix, um, but it's just like contemporary art. Like you have to be careful what you share.
Right.
Like 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 you have to you have to use it in a way that's not disrespectful to your own culture, but also you have to think about how other people are going to use it. Like
Um,
how are they going to when they play this game? How are they going to like if someone has no idea what they're doing, could it become disrespectful in the way they're using it?
Right.
And so I have to sort of tread lightly, and that's why like I made like a and lately I've been like writing different rules because rule writing is like as hard as creating a game. I think
Sure. 100
it's so
percent.
brutal. Like the Three Ravens has gone through so many like I was saying last week, like the newest version of Three Ravens, the rules I really like, and but they're still not perfect. And I think about like even 2 iterations ago, like those were brutal. And I gave a game out to people with those rules, and like
Now you're
didn't get a
like,
lot of feedback.
yeah.
I didn't get a lot of feedback because people couldn't figure out how to play the game, and they were too embarrassed to like say anything to me. Right? Like embarrassed for me, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, but they were bad. But yeah, so I think about that. So I think about that when I'm creating like a I create my games and they're my games. And but like with Ukon City, it's that could be that could have any theme because of the way it's developed. Like that game is really well developed. I've play tested it at a few different conventions, and it's nowhere near getting to the point of like uh, Bright Colors or Three Ravens, but I think it's my best game so far.
It's interesting. I was actually just talking about indigenous futurisms today with another professor at Wesleyan. She's a linguist, Italian linguist, so not indigenous at all. But we were talking about another podcast that she and I are going to work on together, which is looking at tabletop role playing games, specifically role playing games, but we can look at board games too, through many, many lenses. And one of the lenses that we wanted to look at them through is through the lens of culture. And Afrofuturisms and indigenous futurism, I think, is a really interesting space to think about and to make things in, because it is so very hopeful and future forward. So I hope you don't change the thematics of that game. I know you said, yeah, it could kind of be anything, but I don't know. I think the world needs more indigenous futurisms and taking a look at what the world could be if we let people be the stewards of their own culture and the environment and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say keep at it and do that game. We're gonna take a look at the work that you have at the MKG Gallery in Toronto, I believe. Yeah. So Luke, tell us about this piece.
Oh, this is called Bear Mother. It was my first real digital print,
Okay.
and I did this for. See, you see, those were all separate digital drawings
Right.
initially, and I can't remember what year it was. Must have been 2020 or 2019 or 2020. I think I did a piece leading up to National Indigenous Day, June 21st, and every day I sort of put one of those drawings on Instagram, and each one of them said you are a colonist in a different language
Right.
until it finally got to National Aboriginal Day, and so yeah, so that was just sort of like that was the project for me. The project was over then. Like I did these drawings for the purpose of making that statement, sort of having that sort of that piece. I mean, it was a piece. But then I put it together and I showed it, and then I ended up doing a show with Michael at MKG 127 because they had some cancellations because of COVID because people couldn't travel, right?
Right.
I was living in Toronto and I had all these paintings that I'd done, and I'd mostly been known for carving, so I wasn't selling a lot of paintings. And so I had a lot of paintings, and he asked if I wanted to do a show, and I said, well, I got all these paintings, and they're all extremely colorful. And so he said, well, let's do this one as like a giant print. So we did it as a giant print, but like you could see the pixels because it wasn't. I don't know how to do. I can only do like I don't know. I can't do digital stuff very well. Like I can't like vector it. I don't
Right.
know how to do any of
Right,
that.
working raster. Yeah.
So it's like so when you go up close, you can see the pixels, but people liked it for this piece
I think there might be something to that in a way, right?
because it was big.
Um,
Like because we were making like 4.5 foot prints of this
Oh
piece.
wow. Of the whole piece. The
Yeah, the whole
so
piece.
so each square is about a foot and a bit. A foot,
Yeah, I mean it's variable size. Like people can buy it because it's digital, right?
right?
But the ones we were showing at the at MKG in Toronto, like that was a big print, man.
Yeah.
It was
So
excellent. It looked
that
excellent.
it looks great. There are a bunch of viewers right now. So viewers out there, let us know where you're from. Sign into the chat. If you have questions for Luke, please ask them. One of the things that I found really interesting about what you just said about this piece is the leading up to the National Indigenous Day, where it was you are a colonizer in many languages. And this is a question I asked to a lot of my students, when because we have a lot of international students at the college I teach at, and I asked them if they understand what being a treaty person means, and if they are a treaty person. And so many of them don't understand what the treaty that we entered into, or what you enter into as a Canadian, or as a citizen or as a resident, means. And I think it feels right, and it's meant to. I think you mean to. Well, you can let me know if you mean to. It feels kind of not not assault, like not like an assault, not in a bad way, but just kind of a wake up call that hey, you are a colonist. I think that's a very powerful statement to make, and to kind of force people to reconcile that word in their own mind, right? Because a lot of people are like, wait a minute, I wasn't the one who colonized Canada. I just moved here later. That doesn't mean you're not a colonist, and you definitely still are a treaty person. So it's an interesting statement to make, and obviously art is a great way to make those types of statements.
Y- Yeah, and it's sort of the piece sort of stemmed from a conversation I had with a friend, and I was talking about how like sometimes it feels like New Canadians have this sort of idea of like, you know, manifest destiny
Oh God,
in
yeah.
the sense that like this land is somehow, you know, free from history, and they could just come here and, you know, take what they want from, you know, live the Canadian dream, take what they want. They have, and they sort of don't want to know that there's, you know, this land is ancient, right?
Hmm. Oh, what's this piece?
Oh, so this is an awesome piece. It's called Neon Reconciliation Explosion, and this is where the game Bright Colors came from.
Oh, okay, okay,
So
that
this
makes
was
sense now.
so I did this. So I did this, and I did this piece in a. It was a 4-day art festival in Kensington Market, with the Samara Contemporary Gallery in Toronto. And so basically, the curator had asked me to do a piece over the 4 days. And so I had these ideas. Then he came in. He's like, "Well, I'd really love it if it was interactive." And so we started going back and forth. And I saw all of a sudden. And so when he said interactive, I think what he meant was that like I would just paint in front of people and people would talk to me. But I got this idea that, oh, I can get people to like actually help me make the piece. So I designed this piece. It's a butterfly. It's a butterfly house front, and the reason I use butterflies is because in Nishka there's no butterfly clan. So
Right.
when they do clan dancing, they say butterfly, and then everybody who isn't part of a clan can get up and dance. So I had this idea of like doing this front piece, and so I did these drawings. Those panels are all 16 inches by 16 inches, and so over the 4 days, I drew the design on the panels, and I bought all this paint, and I had all these paintbrushes. And so people came, and I just asked them, and this is the year of reconciliation. And so I told them, I said, so I gave them a panel, and I said, there's the paintbrush. All I want you to do is think about what reconciliation means to you, and then paint this panel. You know, you can use the lines I put on there, you can paint something else. It's up to you. Just think about what reconciliation means to you and paint this. You know, use whatever colors you want. And so I did that over 4 days, and it went, you know, it went really, really well. And the only
Hmm.
thing I regret is not having an assistant, because at the beginning of the day, well, no, because at the beginning of the day, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, there weren't that many people, and so I could just sit there and talk with people and have these conversations with people while
Mm.
painting. And when it got really busy, though, I couldn't. I was busy, like, you know, cleaning brushes and getting people paint and mixing paint. And all, you know, so I was super busy. I couldn't talk to anybody. And so I
Right.
wish and I paid everybody. Like everybody who did a panel got paid. I got them a little bag of like chocolate bars and pop and chips. And so when they finished, I gave it to them,
Oh, it's nice.
and it was amazing. And this piece sat in my studio for a couple of years. Um, and so when I got offered the show at MKG 127, the show was called Indigenous History in Color. And so when I got the idea for the piece, I put it together and I made it a facade because I had lost faith in reconciliation at this point, mostly because of the Colton Bushi and Tina Fontaine trials.
Right.
And so I wanted to put them in the piece somehow, but I didn't want to use them. Like I didn't like I felt like
Right.
I
I
would
get
feel
it.
like I was. And so I just like on the little crossbar you see, I just like carved their initials in there, and I made it. And I made sure it looked. I made sure that it looked like a facade, like it wasn't a real house front. And it took me a long time to do that because I didn't want the people who participated in the show to think that I was like um, trying to pull one over on them. Like I had this ulterior motive all along.
Right.
But I finally realized like I asked them to be honest about how they felt about reconciliation. So I have to be honest because I saved the little bottom centerpiece for myself.
Right. So, I mean, while we're here and we have an audience and we have George in the room, George may not understand what truth and reconciliation means to like you and me being Canadian. So I can tell you what it means to me, and I can tell you that it's not going very well. Um, but it comes from a good place, right? Truth and reconciliation for the colonist side of things, right? As a colonist, as a treaty person, means that we are trying to recognize the harms that have been done to the indigenous stewards of the land who were here before us, and move on from that, right? It's not like reparations, it's reconciliation, right? It's addressing the truth, reconciling that in whatever way that takes shape and form, and then moving past that again, hopefully together in the original treaty agreement, where it's like two rivers flowing side by side with each other, where we share the land. That was the intention, right? And lo and behold, the colonist forces completely did not do that for a good hundreds of years, right? And so that's what it means to me. And when I hear that you've lost faith, Luke, it obviously makes me very sad. But I wish we could do more. And what can we do? And how do games come into that? And how did this inspire Bright Colors? And how could that become part of the
Well,
reconciliation process?
sort of indirectly in a sense that like because did this Indigenous History and Color traveled from MKG 127 to the Bill Reed Gallery in Vancouver, and I had really wanted I had I wanted so I had printed out like each one of these panels on pieces of paper, and my vision for it was that people would come into the gallery, they see the piece, and they could like color in their own. And the question would be there on the wall, like, what does reconciliation mean to you? And they would sort of color in their own, and they sort of have built their own sort of patchwork version of this piece. But unfortunately, because of COVID, we weren't able to do that. But we showed the piece again in New Westminster a couple of years ago, and they were able to do that. And the kids came in and they were like drawing on them and writing on it and doing their own version of the piece with little square pieces of paper. And so I thought, and I just remember thinking, oh man, it's so cool. Like, it's so amazing. Like, sometimes they'd put it on Instagram, like the gallery, and the kids would talk about what it meant to them, and they'd be into it. And I thought, oh, this, and I don't know where it happened, but I want to do a coloring game. Like, I want to do something with this idea of this coloring game. And I thought it could be a print and play game. And then I thought, well, Three Ravens is like, it's quite an undertaking. Like, I'm doing this on my own. And I thought maybe print and play would be a good way to start, because then I don't have to worry about manufacturing. And I can just sort of learn how to use the crowdfunding system through this game. And then I sort of got really back into Three Ravens, and I sort of put it aside for a while, because the original name for the game was Neon Native Art Explosion or something like that. Anyway, it wasn't that great a name, and I thought, well, and then I thought, well, what if this game ends up being something I can do more of in the future? Like, I would love to like be able to bring other artists in to do other sort of things and maybe have different themes. So I thought, I better think of a name that's more generic in a sense, that but still represents this idea of like uh, putting together sort of mosaics.
Hmm. When you said that, oh, this became the game, it's like, oh, that makes total sense, actually, because it is so very vibrant and colorful. Um, does the game include like the patchwork style that this is in, or is it?
Yeah. Each like, so basically when you play the game, you'll have two decks of cards, and you'll have these designs, and each design will be a part of a greater uh, piece. And so once you're done playing the game, you can sort of cut them out and tape them together, and you'll have like a piece like of all these different colors. It's an area control game at its heart, and set collection. I'm playtesting right now. It works pretty well. It's not. Never really intended it to be for children, but people are playing it with their children, and so, which makes sense. It's a coloring game.
Mhm.
I had this idea of like adult coloring books, but
Right.
sometimes products tell you what they are. Not, I'm trying to tell the product what it is, but it's telling me no. People want to play this with their kids, and so I have to work on the time. Like, it takes too long to play.
Yeah, that is a
Wow.
great sentiment, everybody out there who's doing design. Sometimes the game wants to be what it is.
Yeah, because I didn't think of it right. Then I thought, yeah, of course they're going to play this with their kids. Like, it makes so much sense.
So
Like,
much
and so
sense.
and so after about half an hour, the kids are starting to get bored. They're just like,
Right. They like the
it's,
coloring part. They weren't so into the strategy or
it
the set collecting
depends.
part or
It
whatever.
depends on the kid and the age. Like, when you're playing with like five and under, like, they just like the coloring part, and some people said they actually have to have another coloring book beside them.
Right.
And then when you get into 6 or 7 or get above that, like, sometimes they get really competitive. Like, they start like, because you can't, there's no like take that, but you can sort of manipulate the game to get more points.
We have an interesting question on the chat, and you can answer it if you like. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine too. But we'll ask it. So, me, myself, and I, 534, whoever that is, they're watching from internet. Welcome from YouTube. They ask, "How do you feel about refugees? I guess refugees coming to Canada or to America. You know, it's all part of Turtle Island. So, what are your thoughts on refugees?
Oh, I don't know. I don't. That's fine.
Right?
No, just like no, just like I said, I just wish there was a better way to educate them about the history of this country and hopefully just that they would realize that they're part of that history now. Like
Yeah, you
they don't
don't
get
get to
to.
absolve yourself from it because
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I get you. And it's
But I don't.
fascinating.
But I'm not against. Like I'm extremely. I'm not against immigration at all. Like
Yeah,
not at least.
yeah. I think it's fascinating that so many new immigrants to Canada and to the United States and and they know more about Canadian history and American history than people who were born here. It's kind of funny how much we do teach them in the immigration process. It'd be fascinating to know how much, because I don't know this, I don't actually know how much we teach them or the government teaches them about the the stuff that is in that big old Truth and Reconciliation document, which is, I can't even remember how many pages it, but it's huge. It's a big study. Um, so yeah, I think it's very interesting that people people should learn about this kind of stuff and the histories. Canada. For those of you who are Canadian watching, we often think of ourselves as polite and kind and all that kind of stuff. And I think reconciliation is just asking us to look at the history of Canada and not through rose colored glasses, right? And I'm hoping, Luke, that some of your games can bring that history to light through a engaging, playful manner. And play doesn't always mean fun, right? Play sometimes means we're engaging with some difficult things, but through an act of play, which is willingness to engage. I chose to do it. I'm learning something while I'm doing it, and that's all fun and cool. Um, George, where are you? You're not originally from the Pacific Northwest, are you, George?
No, I'm from the East Coast,
Okay.
New Jersey.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's it's still ceded land, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Hey, Deadpan, how you doing?
very much
Uh,
so.
so I don't know how many more pieces we have in here to take a look at, but let's take a look and see. Oh, those are just close-ups of that
Yeah.
piece. More
Yeah. So
close-ups.
54 different people painted that piece.
Right.
Um, and originally, I made this piece because I wanted to explore reconciliation from an artistic standpoint.
Right.
Because I knew I wasn't going to write a paper. Like I'm not an academic in that sense.
Right.
I'm a,
Sometimes, I mean, not even sometimes, a lot of times, this is more powerful and visceral. I think asking people to reflect on things is one of the powers that art has, and it's one of the things I actually like the most about role-playing games. Is at the end we ask people to reflect about certain things that happen in the game. What does that mean for their life? All these things that you don't get in like a board or card game, which are much more product centric, I guess, and enjoyment centric. Whereas, sometimes I think if we push towards areas of friction, we tend to learn a little bit more, right? So, asking somebody to reflect upon colonization, about reconciliation and what it means to them while they're painting a piece and while they're helping, I think that's the most important thing, helping create a piece that was originally concepted and drawn by an indigenous artist and then finished by a person who is most likely 99.9% a colonist, that is a really powerful statement when you think about it. I just hope people are thinking deeply about art and culture and games. I think that's really interesting.
yeah. Yeah. And before we go on, I want to say
Yeah.
there is a truth and reconciliation game made by a friend of mine, David Pilmion. Pilmion. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
yeah. And he's a really great guy. And sometimes the publisher will post stuff on Facebook, and some people will sort of be a little bit offended that they're making truth and reconciliation a game. But I just trying to, I just want people to try to educate people to be that like it's a medium like we can it doesn't isn't as it's not Monopoly, like it's not Scrabble, it's a medium and you can say different things and you can use it as a learning tool, right? Like
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Monopoly was originally called the landlord game, and it was about actually like
agreed.
very, yeah, exactly, very socialist comment on how greed and land and tying up money in land is a not a great thing for society in general, right? And then it was co-opted entirely, actually stolen from the designer. George, have you ever learned anything from gaming? I mean, like in terms of social issues and things like that, do you get turned off when somebody tries to, quote unquote, push an agenda through a game?
No, I would say not at all. I'm always interested in anything that's put in front of me. Like the story, I assume that everything that's been created has been created with some sort of intent, and I am as interested in understanding the intent of the creator as in the shared experience that I can have at the table with other people. So no, I don't really have a problem with that at all. I mean, anything can be badly designed, but
Yeah,
that's
for
that's
sure.
that's separate. That's separate from whether you what your intentions are. I I think that people in the same way I don't think anyone's ever actually apolitical. I think that people who say they can create something without having a perspective and a mindset about it are probably deluding themselves.
Probably. And also being apolitical is taking a stance, right?
Yes, but yes, not making
Right.
a decision is a very big, very strong decision in and of itself.
Right. Cool. So we've talked about your gallery stuff. We've mentioned how some of them are related to the games that you've made. Um, what is what is your hope when you make games that are intrinsically indigenous by the nature of just being made by you, but they're also going to feature your art, and that is going to have part of culture in it? And I know earlier on you said that you're very used to having to, and the indigenous cultures of America and Canada are very used to creating pieces that are seen first as a product. What do you hope that you can get through to, or maybe communicate to gamers, to players, while they're playing, say, a game like Three Ravens or Bright Colors? Are you going to have the same type of ask in that to like reflect upon reconciliation while you're playing Bright Colors, or is it going to be completely different? What do you think?
No, it's going to be completely different. When I'm designing games, I want people to have fun. Like I want people to play the game and have fun. And I think it's like the way I sort of do things is I like to show confidence in my culture and just like so by showing people what it is and seeing it done in like a confident way and sort of a that's sort of the idea behind that is like we're still here, we're still strong, we didn't disappear, like our culture is very vibrant and I'm showing you it's vibrant by look, here it is, it's a game, like it's this culture is very vibrant and it still exists. And so I think that sort of people can learn in sort of an osmosis sort of way. Like you don't need to beat head over people over the head with your ideas. You can just show these ideas existing in a positive way in the world.
Right.
That's sort of the way that I think of it. As far as storytelling goes in board game design, like I'm still not there yet with my board game design. Like right now, I'm just trying to make games that are fun. I think once I don't have a published game yet. Like I need to publish some games and get my name out there, but I also need to become better, get some games finished, so my confidence can grow in my game design. Then I can start like, because I have ideas, but I have no idea how I'm going to do them yet. Like I have a lot. Like one thing I've been really fortunate as an artist, as a person, is like my real gift has been creativity.
Hmm.
Like my ideas never stop. Like I'm always thinking of new art pieces, new games, I wanted to make comics before ideas for comics. Like it's at almost sometimes it's even just too much. Like I got to focus. I can focus on things, which is why I become obsessed with things because I need to. Otherwise, I wouldn't do anything.
Right. You'll do
You
everything
know,
instead of one thing, right?
yeah. I just have like half finished comics, half finished games, half finished carvings, which I do. But less than I would if I didn't become obsessed with things.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I do have ideas. I do want to incorporate things. But for now, like I said, like even with my art form, I always just feel like you need to go forth with confidence so that people can just see it and be like,
Yeah.
wow, like that's that's why I love contemporary indigenous art and young contemporary indigenous artists like Northwest Coast stuff, like do stuff, and it's all like they're riffing on like Western art history, they're riffing on like popular culture, anime kind of stuff because it shows confidence. Like they know what they're doing and they're very confident in their culture. They're not worried that it's going to get you know homogenized. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, and I think that's a good thing because then people can see it and be like, okay, oh yeah, that's they're doing something. Like that's
There's an amazing piece of art I saw maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember who did it, but it was Batman, Batman done in the style of Haida art. So it was really this neat integration of East, sort of not of like indigenous culture and pop culture, and I thought that was fascinating, and it was beautiful too. It was like that is a cool piece of art. And oh yes, me, myself, and I is commenting that the original Monopoly designer was a woman. It was called the Landlord Game, and that's Elizabeth Maggie, who was the original designer of that. And then it was like stolen from her, and all that kind of stuff. So, Luke, what would help get your games to that point where you are confident in putting them out, just as games, no messages, just the game? What would help you? What do you think you're looking for or needing?
uh, I just need to do the work. Like I'm just like Bright Colors needs more playtesting. Three
Hmm.
Ravens needs the rule book especially needs a bit more work. The game could probably be tweaked here and there, but then you could tweak forever, right?
Right.
And Ulicon City just needs some more playtesting. Like it's it's got a lot of playtesting, but it needs more. Like I've changed a few things like there, but that game's like solid, man. So
So
I just need to do the work. Sorry.
yeah, where do you get your playtesters? Do you play online a lot or?
Just I've done it like with Bright Colors. I just contacted people and asked people through my socials and friends, and I just send them the files. Three Ravens, I've sent it. I made a second round of prototypes early this year,
Mhm.
and so I gave those away at like conventions and asked people to contact me, and then I gave them away to people locally here, and I've gotten some feedback. I gave some to friends who, if you're listening, none of them have given me any feedback. They just enjoy having the pretty cards.
Right.
It's quite a beautiful game.
Yeah.
If you guys had asked, I would have sent you a copy each. I've got around 20 left.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's great. And what conventions do you usually go to?
these were my first two were Dice Tower West and oh no, I went to Terminal City Tabletop in Vancouver last year,
Yep.
but I was just there to like experience it. But this year I went to Dice Tower West to prototype or to playtest. I did that for the whole weekend,
Oh, nice.
and I got a lot of really great feedback on Olicon City. And then I made changes to the game. So when I got to Terminal City Tabletop, it was even further along, like
Excellent.
like like light years beyond what it was at Dice Tower West. Like there was a whole quarter of the game got eliminated. Like I had this mechanic, like this freelance like worker mechanic that I wasn't there from the beginning, so I couldn't get rid of it. And when some people played it, it was like just one guy was like, "Yeah, I'm never going to use that," and people weren't using it. And I was like, and it was easily taken out of the game. Like I didn't have to do anything to take it out of the game. Like it was just like an add-on.
It's as if it never existed.
Yeah, so I had there because it was there from the beginning, and I couldn't get rid of it. And I got rid of it. And I was like, wow, the game flow is so much better now, and I can eliminate one third of the rule book.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah,
That's one
playtesting is the
third of
best.
yeah, one third of the rules you don't. That's right. So I will 100%, almost 100%, like 99.9%, be at Terminal City next year. So 20 January. No, it's in March of 2026 in Vancouver. So I will hopefully be there. So hopefully I see you there, which would be wonderful.
Yeah, and since they're on different weekends, and because I'm not going to any American conventions this year, I'll definitely go to Breakout Con next year.
Hey, I will be at Breakout as well. That's why normally I'm not at Terminal City because Breakout is my local. So it's nice
And
that
they're the
they're not
same
on.
weekend.
Exactly. Every year for the last 7 years.
It makes no sense.
It does not. You'd think they would talk to each other. So I will be at that one, and then I'll be at the other one. So we'll see each other like 2 weekends in a row almost, probably, which will be lovely. That'll be great. So hopefully we can play test each other's games
Sure.
and help you get yours further along and myself further along. Um, yeah. So what else is there that you have to tell the people about your games? Where can people like download the files for bright colors?
Well, if they just email me, we'll give them my email address. I have curvecutgames at gmail.com. If they
Okay,
email me, I'll send them a copy because I have two. I basically have two like playtest versions of the game, design packages and the rules,
right.
and I can send them an ad. They could test it out and see what they think. Give me some feedback.
All right. So, if you're listening out there and you want to get some print and play copies of Luke's games, you can email him at curvecutgames@gmail.com. And by the way, explain to everybody what a curve cut actually is, because I'm not sure everybody knows.
So when you're making a bedwood box, so in the old days they used to make these storage boxes out of cedar, and so they'd be like I don't know, say 6 feet long and 18 inches wide, and basically instead of like cutting the plank into four pieces and making four walls, they would cut notches into it and steam the corners and
No.
bend it into a box. And the cut that they made was called a kerf. It was a curve cut,
Mhm.
and so I got the idea for curve cut games from the curve cut.
There you go.
Um,
Oh, very cool.
I only got the idea because I was thinking of like board game boxes and so I did a drawing of like a bentwood box, like a square bentwood box, like on a 3/4 angle, and it looks like a hex. So I was like, wow, this is meant to be.
Right. Because it would end up looking like a hexagon, which is
Yeah,
apparently the best of shapes for gamers, right?
yeah. It's pretty
Excellent.
utilitarian.
Yeah, it's useful. It's a useful shape. And then when you turn a cube on its side, it kind of looks like one.
Yeah.
Cool. So in terms of your process, we've kind of seen a little bit about how your art has led to giving you ideas for games. Has it ever gone around the other way, where a game you're working on, or maybe even a game that is somebody else's game that you're playing, inspires you to create art?
Um, it's it's really the idea. Well, the answer is yes, but it's not so much because I'm playing a game. It's because I'm always being inspired by different things I'm doing. Like obviously, you guys are board game designers. You know how inspired you get when you're playing someone else's game
Sure.
for your own games. Like you'll see like a little mechanic and you'll be like, oh my god, that's so perfect. And I've been had this problem in my head forever. And this one little thing I saw is like, oh, that'll solve it so well. Or even just like seeing a cool mechanic and being like, wow, that's really cool. Like I played Tabletop Inc. recently, and every time you retrieve your workers, like you move the dial down to towards the end of the game. Like that's how the game ends by movement every time. I was like, oh, that's so
Mhm.
cool. Um, yeah, so things like that. Like yes, I get inspired for different things, for sure. And and also I see connections. I haven't played it yet, but I downloaded the files for what's the name of that? What's the name of that game about the Dutch Resistance Orange
Oh yeah.
something?
Oh, I have it on my shelf. I know.
But it
I
but
know
it
which one
was
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it reminded me of like there's a film about like and there's all kinds of stories about kids who are avoiding Indian agents so they don't have to be sent to residential schools.
Right.
And the sort of idea of hiding out and sort of hiding in different people's houses and hiding in the forest and sort of trying to avoid whenever the Indian agent would come into the village to take kids off to residential school. And I saw that game. I was like, wow, that kind of reminds me of that idea. I'd love to do something with that, like this idea of like this almost it's not a game, but it's essentially playing hide and seek but the consequences are
Mm.
horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's an art piece, which is also a game called Trains, which is similar in not in the subject matter, but in the it'll hit you in the gut when you find out what it's actually about, right? So it is a museum piece installation where you only can play it really once, because once you find out what the story is actually about or what the game is actually about, you're like, I never wanted to play that again. That's horrifying. Let's not do that.
Mm.
But I do think there's a I think the word game is loaded, right? It's
Mm.
like games you have to have fun, games you have to enjoy, and I would have to disagree that you don't have to actually, have like fun is not the right word. I think a game can be engaging, a game can be meaningful, and you can learn from a game without ever like laughing or smiling while you're playing it. And I think that's why we get this sort of disservice towards games as a medium or games as a meaningful job or whatever, because people only or most people view it as like, oh, it's entertainment first, right? But people are entertained by like movies like Schindler's List and things like that, and they're still entertained. But I think we have this kind of loaded
Yeah,
entertainment value to games. George, yeah,
there's a strange line that if it's participatory, it can't be meaningful in the same way. I think it just games is the first one that comes to mind, but I think anything where it's not one person just presenting something that you consume, um, it isn't taken as seriously, or people just don't think it has the potential to be as serious because you as the person as an interactive element of it are. I'm not really sure why people feel that way. You would think that it would almost be more impactful if it's creative, right, where you're a part of the story and you walk away from it. I don't know. I think it would
yeah,
trigger. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
and
why it's always been that way, but
I think part of it too is like people perceiving games being for children, like board games being
yeah,
for children. Like comic books went through the
sure.
same. They've
Yeah,
gone through the same thing where people didn't take comic books seriously. Like they didn't see it as a medium; they saw it as something for kids to consume. And
yeah. And now
obviously that's
there's
changed.
multi-billion-dollar movies made about them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also there's really great stories being told, but
Hmm.
and it had to be done through independent creators, right? Like
Yeah.
like Marvel and DC weren't going to make like really important. Well, they couldn't. They had the comic books code.
Right. They were like more of the sort of like pablum, right? It's like
Yeah,
this is digestible for most people, right? Me, myself, and I is saying that the hide and seek ID sounds fun, and maybe it could be incorporated into curriculum, right? And I think that's where educational games or games that are meant to educate, they can still be fun and interesting, but maybe that's where that game could exist, and or maybe it gives you an idea for a game where the reality is harsh and you know destructive for generations and iterations, but the idea of escaping from the Indian agents is something that inspires you to make something else. And I think that's okay too. Like out of sorrow and trauma, some good things hopefully can happen, right? Sorry, your username is quite long. It is quite long. They're embarrassed that I put their username up on the screen there, but there you go. George, have you ever thought about making a game that is based on something that is a little difficult, a difficult subject?
yes. I think that a lot of my interest in games actually comes kind of from that direction. I have a game. Oh, since you bring it up,
Yeah, yeah,
game I'm working on that I'm trying to rework now because it went down a direction that's just sort of a dead end. But you're basically running a small company, and it the themes you can run this company like, potentially successfully as one where you respect your employees and you allow you it's fine for them to self organize and you work with them, or you can exploit them and basically fire them when they're burned out and hire new people who are cheaper, as we see so often, and that
right.
sort of thing. Um, I hope there's a message in it that that's not the most efficient way, let alone the most ethical way to run a business. But I can't tell a story from one side without offering you both. And I
Hmm.
was going through a playtest of that at one point, and someone was looking at these actions. They're like, I just don't feel comfortable doing some of these things.
Good.
Yes, and that touched me like, there's a lot going wrong with this game, but at least that worked in a sense. I feel like I have to offer the option, and there are people who aren't bothered by it at all. But like the fact that someone got that this is a reflection of a reality that does exist, and they don't want to go down that way.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe was like a small bright spot of my day that like I communicated something effectively through a game.
Hmm. So everybody out there, if you are into reading about like games from an academic perspective, I highly recommend you read Elizabeth Sempat's book called Empathy Engines. It's a very small book. You could read it, in a day. It'd be an easy read, but it's fascinating because what it talks about is how social values are baked into games. And one of the prime examples that she uses, I believe it's in SimCity, and how SimCity has gone through many variations with many different publishers. And simple things like when the police come, when the police in SimCity
Hmm.
come to an area, depends on who the publisher is and the politics that that publisher believes, or the coders or the designers. It's fascinating, right? That we build into our games our own belief structures in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of senses, right? If we are trying to tell a story, if we are trying to make a game that has some meaning in it. For example, even something as simple as a name change. So we changed the name of Manifest Destiny, which is a horrible term if you know what it means, right? And if you don't know that it's also a comic book that is fighting a kind of arguing against Manifest Destiny, then you'd think that anybody who makes a game called that is a big jerk like me. And it's funny, not funny, but some people, when I said, "Oh, we're making a game called Manifest Destiny," and I forgot that not everybody knows that that's the name of a comic book, because why would I ever know that? And people would message me and said, "Hey, are you sure you want to call it that?" And it kind of made me question. Oh yeah, we nobody knows that that's an actual real
Hmm.
title for a book, and that's what it's based on. So I think intentionality matters, like you were saying before. That words matter. That reflection is important, and if you're pushing against something difficult and hard in your game design in terms of cultural issues, all those things. I think games are a really important way of being able to address those things, because they're more approachable, for example, than a textbook, or sometimes even than a movie where you have to sit through graphic images. But one of the things that I will say is exactly what you said, George, is that oftentimes in a game you are almost like embodying the person making the decisions, right? And that can be even more palpable as a "I can't do that" type of moment. Um, but we're all really able to like push little tanks across a map to blow up Nazis.
Yes, I
So,
forget about.
right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Manifest Destiny almost could have been the title of an old school Euro.
I mean, I'm sure there is one
Yeah,
called that, to be
feels like there
to
must
be
be.
sad and honest about it. Um, but yeah, it was a comic book based on the the travels of um, Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea across the plains. But because it's a comic book, they fight demons and monsters who are trying to, you know, incite kind of riots and things like that, just bad stuff happening all around. Anyways, so the as a comic book title, it was a very powerful comic book title. As a game title, though, however, nobody would want to touch that. We actually got told by a distributor that we can't carry that if you call it that. And we're like, oh, that makes sense. Right. And it's interesting because we got the comic artist to draw us a new cover. And what he handed in, I don't know if you knew this, George, because I don't think I've ever told you this, but the
No.
cover was basically an upside down American flag with Sacagawea superimposed upon it. Right. And it's like, yes, I love it, but no, we cannot use that. Right. Because that, as a book, that would have sold a bazillion
Oh yeah,
copies.
yeah.
But as a game,
And
no.
I suppose it circles back to it is a product as well, and you do
Yeah,
want
it's
it to move
weird,
off
right?
of the shelf, but that would have been pretty badass.
It would have been. I should actually just find the piece and just print it out for myself. And but anyways, so
Yeah.
Luke, we are coming up on the hour. What do you got to say, man? What's left to say?
Oh, I was gonna say that could have been like a Kickstarter
Yeah,
exclusive,
that's thinking the same
like
thing.
like like like
I,
like 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 an alternative box for people if they
Yeah.
wanted it.
I mean,
Yeah.
we
Second edition.
Yeah,
would
keep it in
have
mind.
we would have probably got happen is getting, trolled on the internet, like you said, right? So everybody, we are at the hour and it is time to say goodnight. I know on the West Coast it's pretty early, but over here in the East Coast it's 10 o'clock. So I've got to go to bed. But it was so nice to see you, Luke, and talk to you about Three Ravens and Bright Colors and your third game, which you never told me about, but now I know about it, which sounds wonderful as well. And it sounds like it's more of like the evolution of gaming, right? It's like you have a print to play, which is, coloring, you have a trick taking card game, and now you're moving into like a deeper, bigger game, right?
Yeah, it's an excellent game. It's a, it's got combos and the card plays like sort of inspired by Marvel United, where you play cards around a
Oh,
circle.
cool.
The board is circle, and there's a color bar around the edge, and you play cards, and the bar corresponds to the zones inside the map, and you combo your cards off your neighbors. Like you play it next to another card, you get to do two actions and both colors, and it works really well. Like I'm super stoked and
It sounds
excited
great.
about that game.
Cannot wait to
Yeah.
see it. And I will
But
see you in 2026. So we'll
yeah,
play that at least, right?
yeah. Before we go, I just want to give a shout out. Like when I sort of went down this journey to starting my own company and stuff, I didn't know anything about starting a company, and so I took an indigenous entrepreneurship program at Tricor, run by Corey Stevens, and I just wanted to give them a shout out because I wouldn't have been able to do anything like business wise. Like I don't know, even though I've been a professional artist for 20 years, I don't know anything about products or selling or anything about business. I know how to make art. Yeah.
Right.
So shout out to
Now
them.
you know a little bit about the business side, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Excellent. It's very good to hear. So, everybody out there, if you want to chat after the show, you can find me on Blue Sky at Senfeng Lim. You can find George and Kat, who is asleep, at Dreyer Inc. on all the things. And you can find all of us at Maple Syrup on all the things. Curvecutgames@gmail.com is where you can reach out to Luke. And if you send him a very nicely worded email, he may send you some print and play files for the games that we've talked about today, specifically Bright Colors. Do you have print and play stuff for Three Ravens as well?
No, it's a card. It's a 78 card trick taking game. It's a big
People
trick
might
taking
print that out. People might print that out.
game. No plans.
No plans yet? Okay, cool. If you want to take a look at more of Luke's amazing artwork, you can check out the studios and the galleries where he is featured. mkg127.com in Toronto. Better yet, go there in person, right? And mfineart.ca, which is in Vancouver, correct?
Yeah, Macaulay Fine Arts.
Macaulay Fine Arts in Vancouver. If you want to help to keep the lights on here, you can go to patreon.com/maplesyrup and sign up for a patron level. Next week, George, I will be at a movie, weirdly called The Hobby. It's about this hobby of ours. It's
Oh,
about
okay.
gaming. Yeah, so at the Toronto International Film Festival in the Lightbox Theater,
Very cool.
Simon Ennis is going to be showing his movie, which premiered at Sundance, called The Hobby. And it is about board gaming. And it has several of our friends, including co founder of Maple Syrup, Daryl Andrews, is in that movie. Starla and Mitch Fitch are in it. Eric Lang is in it. Elizabeth Hargrave's in it. And so a bunch of us are getting together at the Toronto showing to show our support for that. And if you listen this Sunday, Ludology, our episode on Ludology is an interview with Simon. So you can listen to that and figure out, is that something I want to go see? And hopefully you'll be able to see it at film festivals in and around your area. I'm pretty sure it'll be at VIFF if you're ever down in Vancouver there. And I don't know where it's going to be near where you are. But I mean, Portland has a film festival, of course, and Seattle does as well, I think.
Yeah, we have
So
a ton of small theaters.
yeah,
So it's very possible. I will have a look.
perfect for those types of shows, right?
Yeah.
And hey, I told you at the beginning of the show before we got on air that you, Luke Parnell, would have to give final advice. Okay, so, sir, what is your final advice to everybody out there?
Before we get to that, I listened to, I think it was Ludology, and you said that you really like Japanese joinery.
I do.
So I made a coffee table using nothing but Japanese joinery.
Wow.
And I'll send you a picture, but
Yeah, please do.
Very cool.
yeah, it's all put together, all with just dowels. There's no screws. and it's all
Amazing.
like overlapping, and each corner has like 4 legs,
Oh, very
and
nice.
there's over 64 like joins. It took me 2 hours to put it together on final put together, and
Wow.
I almost started crying because with 64 different joins, if one is even like half a millimeter
Oh,
out, it
Yeah,
won't
everything
join.
won't
everything.
join anymore. That's
Yeah,
Okay.
amazing.
like everything. I'll send you a picture. It's pretty cool.
Please do.
Yeah.
It's made from tiger, maple, and cherry.
Oh,
Lovely.
amazing.
Yeah. And so anyway, I just thought I'd listen to the because I like to listen to podcasts when I'm carving. I heard that and I was like, I made a coffee table. Anyway, so I just
Yeah,
thought I'd throw that
joinery
in.
is fascinating to me.
It's
I
awesome.
it's amazing.
It's super amazing.
I wish I was good at it.
Yeah. I wish I
Maybe
still
that's
had a
what I
shop.
yeah, maybe that's what I can get into as my old age.
You just need a table saw and planer.
Yeah, I need to not cut my fingers off. So
Yeah, and and some
Tried to,
instruction.
yeah. I am
so I
not the
tried to
most
make a bit of
skilled
furniture.
with
It's more
power
than
tools.
But you can get a table saw that will the blade drops as your skin hits it.
What? Okay, maybe I'll get that.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll try
Anyway,
that.
so final advice. I think only I can think of is like this advice I give to young artists is
Love it.
finish things.
that. Ooh.
Finish things and move on. Like like if you're designing a game, finish it, or finish it, put it away, move on to the next one. Like um, there's nothing more valuable than moving on to the next idea. And I
I
also
think
say
that
don't.
is wonderful advice.
Yeah.
You
And
don't hear
also,
that often.
and I
That
also
is
say
really
don't.
good.
And I also say don't worry about being pretentious. You're going to be, so don't worry about it.
You're an artiste.
Yeah,
You're bound to
yeah.
be pretentious
So
just by
don't worry
nature.
about it. Don't worry about it. Just do it, man. Yeah, just do it. Like just do things. Like just do things. Like people want to help you. If you're working hard and you're doing stuff, people will notice and they'll want to help you.
That's great. Very good advice. Love it.
And look at me, I'm on a podcast.
Hey. Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Me, myself, and I, 534. Everybody else out there in Maple Syrup Land, thank you very much. Deadpan. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I don't know who we're gonna have on, but we'll figure it out. And then I don't know, George. We'll talk about what we're doing in the summer
Okay.
because normally we don't have summer shows, but because Kat's gone and she's in Prague and I'm not traveling as much, though I seem to be traveling still. We may still have summer shows. I don't know yet. We'll make that decision when we come to it. But in 2 weeks for sure, we'll be back in and around the same time and place to talk to another wonderful guest, just like Luke, except different. All right. We'll see you all later. Thanks very much.
Thanks
Bye.
for having me on, guys.
Anytime.